Are you thinking about installing a fence in your yard, but you're not quite sure on what materials or what steps you're gonna have to follow to get the job done? I will walk you through all of those details in this video to show you how I created this fence for our garden. Let's get right to it. Once you plan out the size of your fence and where you're gonna run it, there are two key materials that you have to factor in first. The first one is your post. You wanna make sure that you get the right size post. I recommend going with a 4x4 pressure treated post all the way around. If for some reason you need a 6x6, you're gonna be lugging around some heavy posts. Second, you need to figure out the size of your rails. And I like to use the 1x6. And in this one specifically because it's not just a fence to hold our chickens in, which is one function, or the deer out, which is another function, but we also want a little bit of privacy in the garden as well. That's why I went with the 1x6 and 4 of those rails so that I get a little bit of privacy behind that fence. You also have to give consideration to your hardware. For this fence in particular, I went with 2.5-inch wood and fence screws. These are rated for outdoor use. I went with that length because of the size of my boards and the fact that I wanted to get a really deep anchor within the post so that they will hold in place for a long period of time. If for some reason you go with a thicker board for your rail, just make sure you get the right size screw so that it will hold into the post nice and firm. As you plan out the placement of your fence, the most important part of this is getting your corner posts in the right place because they will dictate where all of your other posts go. You want them to be in a straight line unless you have some sort of odd thing where you have to make them crooked on purpose, and that's okay. But if you're looking for a straight line, getting these posts in the right place is going to be the thing that you want to spend the most time on. Take your time with this. To mark the post placement, I just used a bright marking line that I bought on Amazon. I hooked it to some small rebar pieces and then I put these in the ground and then just ran them around the yard. I spot checked it and looked at it a lot to make sure that I had the right angles and that my lines were true as far as where I needed them to be in relation to our chicken coops and the gardens. I needed to have enough space so that my lawn tractor could get through the garden once I get everything in place. The bottom line is this: the more time you spend up front planning those corner post placements and making sure everything is where it needs to be, the easier the project is going to be as you move forward. Once your posts are set and ready to go, you can move on to rail installation. When I install my rails, I run the board all the way to the end of my corner posts and then I split it halfway through the post. So I have one rail on one half, one rail on the other side. I'm doing a front rail system here. You could do several different methods. This just happens to be the one that we chose for this installation. When you install the rails, I highly suggest that you use clamps to hold them in place. Doing this will make it easier for you to line it up, number one, but get everything drilled and screwed in place, number two. This also helps when you're doing this job by yourself like I am here. Follow this process by starting at the top and work your way down. Please make sure that you pre-drill your holes. This is going to be a key step for you, especially when you're drilling right at the end of the boards. You do not want to splinter your boards as you're installing these rails in place. This could create a bigger problem and you're going to have to go get another board in order to get it installed. So to save some lumber, pre-drill, then put your screws in. And just follow this process all the way down across all of your posts until you get to the end. As you move along with your rail installations, just measure them to ensure you get the right length, but I also like to use the clamps to hold them in place, especially when I'm working by myself. As you do this, grab a nice box level like this Capro Tools level that I have here and use that to guarantee that your rails are straight each time. Because these boards tend to bow sometimes, even if you were just to use this 1x4 as a spacer, which is what I use as my initial guide, you're still gonna come out of level sometimes because these boards are not all completely true. As you move through the project, you need to make sure you leave room for the gates because you will ultimately have to get into your garden. So once all of the rails and the posts are put in place, it's time to move on to building gates. I'm doing something very unique on this project, and for all of the details on how to build those gates, click or tap on this video. And until the next time, keep doing it yourself.